Welcome, welcome. This is a fun night. Your questions are answers. Okay, good questions, and you'll be the judge of whether we have good answers or not, okay? But I do find out that there are things that we just need to ask. And there's sometimes we have a lot of information out there, and I think that can be good because I know y'all enjoy going through that information, but sometimes that can be bad because there's so much information out there, it's hard to find something. So I do think sometimes this webcast, we do it annually, kind of pulls together a place for questions and answers. So if you're looking for something, and I think there's some pretty common, issues that have been asked, and so hopefully we can cover a lot of questions and answers. And I really would like you to ask questions about the questions, if that's fair. I know that sounds silly, but if you're not sure about what the answers are, we definitely want to hear, your voice. And so we're going to have some fun. All right. So we're going to start with this first photo. We got plenty of photos tonight. Lots of photos. Probably too many photos. But anyway, we're going to start with this first photo. And I was sent this. Just someone had said this was a great idea. Easy way to wear a top. And let's go ahead and start with that first photo. Yeah. And if you notice, this is a knit. It's just 195, slit down the front, and then simply the collar turned back. So I wanted to kind of do a version of this, but take it up a step because not all the fabrics we have are going to be knit, and they're not going to be this simplistic. So if we wanted to fold it back, we could. And so I used a fabric. And you guys, I don't think I have any of the fabric numbers tonight. I think I left them all on my desk. But anyway, what I did here is I used a fabric that has, it's similar on both sides, but I'm going to say I used a fabric that was good on one side and bad on another side, even though maybe with this I could have. But the point being is I wanted you to see if you wanted to use a fabric that was either woven or something that was bad on the wrong side, we could take it up a little notch. So I'm going to show you a few pictures here that will help you see that. So this is my version, and then also what I did is I just put little snaps here. A lot of times Calvin Klein, Ralph Lauren, when they're doing stripes, they use snaps. So I don't know, for some reason it just seemed like a snap kind of button to me. So let's look at this next picture, because what I did is while I was making this, I took photos. And what this is you're going to see I completely made two fronts. So when I pull this up, you could say it's reversible, but you're not going to want to reverse it. You're going to want to wear it the way you did. But I made two fronts. I sewed the French darts and I put them right sides together. And then what I did is in that picture, you can see I sewed along the neck edge, and then down I slid it 6 inches down, 6.5. Everybody can choose what they want to do, as modest as you want to be, but you're going to just slice it after you sew them, and that's where I'm showing you. And then you can see I cut to that point. And so your sewing is going to be a little bit at an angle, and then you're going to literally cut right to the point. All right, so what that does though is it finishes the neck edge and it finishes the front opening. But if we're going to look at the next picture, and this is just a great lesson overall to learn, because I get this question a lot. If I finish the neck edge in the front, but then I'm sewing it to the back, how do I do that? And we've had a few patterns lately that they have a finished front neck edge, and then how do I sew them to the back? So I want to take you through how to do this. It's very simple to do. It's very easy to do. Ready to wear does it like this all the time. And that way you can feel free to change the fronts and then know how to sew them to the back. So if you're noticing that, because I've already taken the seam allowance away from let's say hypothetically the shoulder seam was even, but I've already used the seam allowance in the front. So now when I sew it together, that circle there is showing you that the back seam allowance is going to extend beyond, and this is at the neck edge, not the shoulder edge. You still want to leave the shoulder edge, even. You're going to extend it at the neck edge. And so it'll be extra, and then you're going to pre-serge that neck edge, and I don't know if you can see, but it's serged, or you don't have to. It's a knit, doesn't matter. But then if you look at the next photo, what you're going to see is where I've turned it under and I've top stitched, and you see how pretty that looks. That's this top at the shoulder seam, which you typically wouldn't see, but you can see the top stitching on the back, and all of a sudden you have no top stitching on the front. Now there are times when you can do a facing like that, and you can top stitch it just because you know you're going to have top stitching in the back. But many, many times you'll see top stitching in the back, but you will not see it in the front. That's because the way this is constructed. So anyway, that's how this was done. That's just kind of taking it up a little bit. If you had a fabric that you could do this on a woven, or you could do it with a fabric that had a backside that you didn't want to see. But either way, I love the idea. Thanks for sending it. And again, it's cute and easy to do. How can I prevent a V-neck slit from flopping open? Am I using too flimsy interfacing? No, it's not. A V-neck flopping open is a fitting issue. It's not a sewing issue. So by saying it's a interfacing issue, that would be saying it's a sewing issue. A V-neck slit. Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, probably it's too low. It's probably too low. Or somehow the neck edge isn't supportive of the fabric you're using. Wrong fabric, wrong pattern combination. Oh, I see what you're saying. In that case, you could use interfacing to hold it up in place. Yeah, but I don't know that you want to. I think if it's too soft a fabric, you'd rather use a fabric that's more suited for that neck edge. I'm a big believer in that. So I think you can use an interfacing if you want to on that, but I think you're really better off to have fabric pattern combinations be more suitable. Or make the slit lower, curve the neck edge rather than making it a V. You can make a V, but then soften it as it goes around. Okay? Okay, so then this next one that I want to show you, we're going to jump to pants here for a minute. And so this is just illustrations that people have sent me, because there's sometimes, you guys, where you ask a question, but because I don't know its reference, it's hard to know what the answer should be. So this particular case, we kind of went back and forth. So what we know about grain line, and what I did here is I made this pair of pants. And what I did is I made this pair of pants. I love this fabric. I made it out of a plaid, a knit plaid. Now, again, I don't know fabric numbers, and I apologize for that. But we've got two of them, and they're beautiful. Like, one's I don't know the numbers, sorry. Anyway, after the webcast, we always have them on the page for you. We always have them up on the page. But I fell in love with this fabric. It's like it's like a pontoroma, and it's a knit, but it's a plaid. It's so beautiful, and it's so perfect for the yoga pant. So it gave me an opportunity to kind of make it up. But if you notice, and just a few details about pants in general, is that what we know is the grain line is 4 inches from center front all the way down to the center of the hem. All right, 4 inches from center front, 4.5, it doesn't make that much difference, all the way down to the center of the hem, and the whole leg is based off of that grain line. When a pant pattern is actually created, the grain line is drawn in first, and then the leg is built around the grain line. All right, so her question really then started to be, okay, well, what about all these changes I'm making? Well, all these changes you're making are actually above the crotch line. If you're taking a dart around here, if you're taking a dart at the top of the inseam, those are all meant purposely to not alter the grain line, because the top of the pant is off grain. So they're purposely meant to make sure that grain line is straight below the crotch. Now we're going to come in here a little bit closer, because what you see is the front of the pant, I want you to see, is off grain. See these vertical lines right here? See how they're coming in at an angle? The horizontals can match, but the verticals cannot ever match. And of course, it's better in the front than it is in the back. When we get to the back, and I'm going to just turn this around real quick so you can see that, I want you to notice these lines right here. You notice how much they go in at an angle. That's the only way plaid pants can happen. Again, the horizontals can match. I can match here, and I can match at the side seam, and I did all that. But when it comes to the center back, that has to go in, and that is correct. And if you look at any pants patterns, and I'll show you a couple pictures, but I wanted you to see on this is that plaid, or that line, goes straight all the way down, and it doesn't matter if it's knit or woven. You want to just pay attention to it. Stretch wovens are probably the worst at twisting, because many times the way they're done, the grain isn't straight in the fabric, and so what happens is stretch wovens are notorious is that one leg will be okay and another side will twist, and that's because you've cut double layer. And what I would recommend on that is cutting single layer and measure each layer as opposed to just cutting them both at the same time. That will greatly help. Okay, many times in stretch wovens we lose that. So the only adjustment that you're going to make here is the knee. So if you make that dart that's at the knee and it goes from the outseam to the inseam, typically it goes from the outseam to the inseam, both the back and the front, you want to simply leave the grain as it is at the top and redraw it to the bottom. Okay, so basically use the top and just connect it to the bottom and you'll be fine. Okay, you can just align the top and the bottom and redraw the whole thing. The grain line, it doesn't really matter which one you go with as long as the grain on the pattern is with the grain of the cloth. Otherwise the leg will twist. So it doesn't matter where the grain line is. In fact, every line that's perpendicular to the crotch line is a grain line. There can be a zillion of them. The only reason we choose the one is because that's a crease line should you decide to put a crease in the pant. So every grain line is there perpendicular to the crotch line. And as long as the line is straight, then they're going to be on grain with the cloth. Okay? Okay. Do you have any tips for fitting clothes on a man? Well, that's a really generic question. So men are just like women. Their cup size is just smaller. So, but as far as everything you do for them, it's exactly the same as it is for a woman. So I don't think I would do anything different other than men's clothing doesn't have a bust dart. So it still has waist darts in the front, waist darts in the back. It has a shoulder dart. The base pattern for men's is the very exact same as women's. Okay, so I generically, specifically, I don't know that I have any great tips for you. Women's is more complex or a little more difficult than men's. So if you understand the principles of women, peel back a bust dart and you should be fine for men. Okay. Please clarify again how to increase the biceps area on a sleeve. Okay, I'm going to get to sleeves, and I appreciate that question. If you'll just hang on just a little bit, okay? Pattern one, yeah, hang on to the questions. I'm going to leave some time at the end for questions that I didn't answer. I totally get that you want your questions asked, but I have a whole bunch here. And so I want to go through what's been sent in. And if you have a question regarding those answers, then ask that right away. But if it's completely a different one, wait until I get there because I have a lot of questions and answers that we're going to go through. And I need to talk faster so we won't be here all night, okay? Is the plaid pants, yes, I'm sorry, it's 3,400. I've got the pattern right here and I'm supposed to be showing it and I completely forget, I'm sorry. It is 3,400, front, back, and a waistband. And I just absolutely love these pants on. They're adorable. So great illustration though of making sure it's straight. And then I wanted to show this photo. If you'll go to the next photo. Yeah, this is a pair. I just was online and they were just showing things, but I want you to look at the center back and the leg. So you see how straight the plaid is on the leg because that's straight of grain. But if you notice at the same time, center back is not on grain. Center back on a pair of pants is never on grain. And for many of you, that's a new concept, you know, because center back on skirt is straight of grain. And there's articles about, oh, take that old skirt or take that old pair of pants and make it into a skirt. You can't do that. Okay, the grains are completely different on those two vehicles, and just because they go from the waist down, they're just nothing like one another. I mean, the shape of the hip, shape of the waist, but I mean, as far as the center fronts go, they're really different from one another. And if you've tried to do it and thought, what's wrong with this photo? It's simply that it's a wrong concept. What pant pattern is that? 3,400. 3,400 is a yoga pant. And then I'm sorry, the first one we did, I used 195. I used the sweater set. So I had that up there. Would you consider bringing back the men's shirt patterns? Hey guys, let's stay on topic. All right. Would I consider it? Yes, but not right now. How's that? Not anytime tomorrow. Okay. So that's our pants answers and questions. Keep in mind that when you are making changes to pants, not all the time, but most of the time, when you're making a dart at center front or center back, and the largest part is at center front or center back, it tapers to nothing at the side seam. If you do not make those alterations correctly, sometimes your hem, your overall hem will differ. Be aware of that. Be aware that if it doesn't taper to nothing, hypothetically, and you know, it looks better if you take out a little ½ inch there, you can do that, but just make sure whatever you do in the front, it matches the back, because it shouldn't throw off the hem at the bottom. And if it's throwing off the hem at the bottom, then something you're doing through the alteration process isn't correct. Okay? Okay. Oh, you know what? This is 4360. I did have this written down on here. This is 4360. This is 4363. Okay. So the next question she wanted me to do was, she wanted me to do 311, Victoria's top, and that's actually a PBS pattern. We've probably got about 8 of them left. We don't 8 sets. It's only available in a set. She wanted me to take 311, and she wanted me to mix it with 425. So 311 is this one. And I didn't bring a picture of 425, but my apologies. 425 is a woven. It's Craig's blouse. So immediately when I got the email, I said, yep, no problem. We'll do that. But what I should have really, I should have taken a minute to think, because you guys know, sometimes I'm answering emails and, you know, they're like one word. Yep, nope, yep, no. But I didn't think about it. So as I started to work through this process, and what I did is I made 311, and I put on the collar that goes from 425. But here's the interesting thing, is there's just not that much difference between the two. So I thought I would actually show you the two collars. And if you'll go to picture number all the way to the end. That one. Nope, next. Yep. If you'll bring that up. Okay, so the top one is 425. Which is this one. I'll turn it to where it's the same shape. And this one is 311. Now, here's the interesting thing on 311. So when you're first doing this, I decided what was the best way to show you guys how to do this, to walk you through how to do it. On 311, the collar doesn't go all the way to the center front. And on 425, it does. So what I did is I changed this so that the collar went all the way to the center front on 311. Having done that, I had to shorten this front piece because the front piece goes all the way up and the collar only goes to here. So had I asked why did she want that, I probably could have been more helpful. But either way, keep in mind that when I am dealing with neck edges, the collar and the neck edge are 1-to-1. And I know you've heard me say this many times. So as long as this neck edge of the collar and the neck edge, the stitch lines are the same, you can switch collars around all day long. I did put a video on sale. I did it today. If you buy, dagnabbit, I don't have this written down either. I left that whole page on my desk at work. If you buy plain potatoes, we're going to send you free what's up your sleeve. Or it might be vice versa. It's in basket only. It might be when you buy what's up your sleeves, you get plain potatoes. But those two DVDs address sleeves and all kinds of changes, and we're going to still talk about them tonight, don't get me wrong. And I think the only advantage of videos is that you know where the information is rather than taking your time to find the information. So the two are basically buy one, get one free. And it's either what's up your sleeve or plain potatoes. It's those two videos. And when you put it in your basket, it will say plus plain potatoes or, the other one. It'll say plus in the title. Okay? Okay. Are we okay with questions? Are those pants made with a stretch woven? This is not a stretch woven, it's a knit. It's a knit. It's a beautiful piece of cloth. And if you look up, again, this is 4360 is the fabric, and 43, I think it's 59. Both of those are just beautiful plaids that, and they're both like a pontoroma. but they have stretch in both directions. Very, very pretty fabric. How to prevent back from sliding down when sitting. Well, the back is not sliding down, it's pulling back. So I would just, you know, maybe correct your interpretation as to what's happening. It's pulling back because there needs to be a rounded back. And that rounded back, if the garment doesn't have enough depth in the back, it will pull back. It's very frustrating, but it doesn't fall down, it pulls back. Okay, just, yeah. Okay, so let's go on to the next one I have. Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. Plain potatoes. I did have it written here. Plain potatoes, if you buy that video, you get what's up your sleeves. So if you put plain potatoes in your cart, it'll say plus what's up your sleeves. Okay. The next photo I think we've got. Yeah, that's early. Sorry, you guys. Okay. Yeah, I'm a little bit out of order tonight simply because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of questions and answers. Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about sleeves for a minute. I got a lot of sleeve questions, and we're going to try to really simplify this to where hopefully you understand. That's why I say if there's things and sleeve questions that you have as I'm going through this, ask, and we'll make sure we can get you through here, okay? All right, so the first one she's wondering about is I wanted to include this because when your blouses are wrinkling like that, that is the fact that the sleeve is too tight. It doesn't mean it's wrong. You're allowed to choose how tight you want your sleeves. But the fabric is telling you the sleeve is too tight. You could argue, well, no, it's just wrinkled fabric. But if you notice, it's not wrinkled anywhere except for right there. And if you notice, that's the largest part of the bicep, and it gets the biggest stress when you go to move forward. And because it's so stressed and so stressed, it stays wrinkled because the cloth is just having a hard time. Okay, so that is a classic sign that circumference is not enough. Anytime you have horizontal wrinkles, those wrinkles are saying to you, give me a bigger size, please. Okay. And so that's what the cloth is saying. So having said that, when you go and transfer that now to a non-traditional sleeve, and it's why I did the one I have on. The one I have on is Giorgio's top. Okay, 312. And Giorgio's top has a kimono. You still have an upper portion of the sleeve that aligns to that part. So your circumference, even though it's not typical in a sleeve and you can measure the circumference, you can still measure the front and the back and make sure it equals the same that you need to have. And you should have for your sleeve circumferences a knit and then a woven and then a jacket. Those three circumferences will help you, and they're going to coordinate to your templates, to your armhole templates. Okay? All right. So again, when I have on a kimono, and you can see that I have on a kimono, I'm going to get wrinkles that are acceptable wrinkles on my body. And those wrinkles are going to be vertical though, because I lack an armhole. And that armhole, what that does, the curve of the armhole and all that, it takes away all the wrinkles that are typically there, like here, in an armhole. Because I don't have a seam anymore. Okay? Okay, now, go ahead.
It's hard for me to tell if it's relevant.
Yeah, just go ahead and put them on. Okay, so Benjamin, just stay there. Yes and no, because we're down a person tonight, and one person's having a hard time doing everything. So just recognize on this collar, I'll just tell you how I did it. I did it just like the 425 or the 600. I tucked the seam allowance under, I lapped it over the raw edge, and I stitched it on. It's called edge stitching. I stitched it in place. And so that's, you're actually seeing a seam there. There is a seam, but it's the folded edge of the collar, okay? Because he's manning that and there's so many questions coming in, I've got so many photos, it's hard to jump behind the camera. We can, but it's for him not going back and forth, just hanging, and I'll answer the questions the best I can. Do you have a video showing how to put in a pocket and lining on pants with welt pockets? Well, there's nothing to have a video on. The welt pocket is just put in, and then the lining has nothing to do with the welt pocket. So I don't see the correlation of those two things in your brain. I'm sure there's a correlation. That's why you're asking the question, but I don't understand what it would be. All right. Does the same thing happen with raglan sleeves? It does. So I made this up because this is 201, and you can see this is a kimono much lower, but you can see all I have to worry about circumference-wise here is this band down here at the bottom. And as long as that band down there at the bottom will go onto my arm, that's all I have to worry about. And you've got an upper seam and a lower seam, so you can take the upper seam out and you can take the lower seam. You can widen both of those. Very, very easy to do. Just think about, how do I add circumference? Okay, now, when it comes to sleeves, I had a question that was asked, and I thought this was a really good question because I really believe that we have a lot of, I'm going to say, older ways of thinking in our head. And we go through the process, and those older ways of thinking are so in here, and we don't even know they're in here. If that is that just fair? So let me explain. And I'll probably read this because it's probably the better way, rather than me explaining it. I thought she said it very well. Okay. So here it is. When I'm making an already adjusted pattern for fit on a new and different fabric, so she knows the pattern fits, but she's trying a different fabric. She wants to have 1-inch side seams for any fit issues of the new fabric. Do I also add 1 inch on the sleeve? Okay. So see, time out. You shouldn't even be doing a sleeve when you're using the body and trying to figure out the fabric differences. You don't need to do a sleeve. Because once you do the body and you understand the differences that happened in the body, you make those changes to the sleeve. The same will be in the sleeve. It's the same proportion of whatever fabric changes I need in the body, I need it in the sleeve also. And I don't want to be adding 1 inch at the side seam. So let me explain this a little bit better. Let's say I added 1 inch in the side seam and I needed a half of that inch. I don't want to put it at the side seam. I want to look at the pattern and go to the next larger size, or in between the next larger size. The only reason I'm putting that inch there is simply so I have it in case I need it, but I would put it on all the seams, not just the side seam. We have been trained and programmed to believe that the side seam fixes everything and the side seam doesn't fix anything. It does in an emergency, I get it. It does on a muslin. But once I figure out how much of that side seam I need to use, I've got to go back to the pattern and figure out the correct size that I should be using. Clearly, it's telling me that the size I'm using isn't the right size. And if I go to the correct size, everything will be in scale and in proportion. Therefore, so will the sleeve. I hope y'all are with me on that. I thought it was a great question. It just is completely the wrong direction, and so I wanted to take a chance to kind of clarify that. Okay? I never did find out how you lay the back of a high rounded back adjustment on the fold. Could you show that? Yes, sort of. When you take and make a back adjustment, I'm going to steal my scissors and use them on here. Let's say that this is the center back. This is a little crude example, but I think you'll get it. Let's say this is the back, and I've made this adjustment. I'm going to come in now, and I'm going to put the straight lines going to go from the base of the neck all the way to the hem. So that means I'm going to cut off a little bit of this right here. I don't need it. Go from here all the way to the hem, draw a straight line, and put it on the fold. Easy enough? I have to change the shoulder angle on my blouses. What do I need to do? What do I need to do that at the kimono sleeve? Same thing. Same thing. If the shoulder angle is down a half an inch, then just do the exact same thing on the kimono. Just bring the bottom of the kimono down so it doesn't take away from your sleeve circumference. Okay? Okay. So hopefully if your armholes, if you have issues with armholes, then just make sure when you're measuring the kimono that you measure the front and the back to get the total. If you need more, then you go up on the bottom, you go up on the top, and you go out on the bottom, both. Now, I want you, whenever you have a sleeve, to know how many inches that sleeve should be. Know how many inches that sleeve should be. If I said to you, and I was walking down the street, and I said, what is your favorite blouse sleeve measure at the cap line? You say, oh, Peggy, it's beautiful weather outside, and my sleeve measures 16 inches. I want you to know yourself, not in terms of your body, in terms of the clothes that you like on your body. That's such an important concept. I know you know that, but just a reminder. And there is a page on the features page of our website. In the middle, it says Finding Your Measurements. We always called it the Brett chart. Print that out and really, truly get it, understand it, and it will help you. Do fabrics change a little bit? They do, but just not that much. Once you know those numbers, you can vary a little bit according to the numbers. Okay. So this is actually, you know, as women, as we age, we have this disease which is becoming all too common called breast cancer and mastectomies and all of the things that go with this illness. And so I do get quite a few questions on what do I do and how do I, you know, I am not the same on both sides, and so how do I adjust or how do I adapt? And I'm going to give you two options. I think that these are personal answers that you really have to solve. And one of the ladies in the question was saying that she had made a jacket and she noticed on one side it was a little more wrinkled than on the other side. And that is because it was her smaller side. So I want to say to you, number one, feel free to be a C cup on one side and a D cup on another. It takes a little more thought process, but it really, keep in mind that the shoulder width will be the same. And or honestly, if you use the larger cup on both sides, you probably wouldn't be able to tell a difference. Whenever you're using cup sizing, what cup sizing is doing is taking away extra fabric. And if you take away too much, it usually doesn't have the impact or the negativity of not taking away enough has. So I'm going to say to you, number one, use a larger cup size on the side that's smaller. Use the same. You're going to have to experiment a little bit. I don't know. I have not had breast cancer. I cannot believe or pretend for 1 minute to understand how you feel going through that process. I can tell you that I've talked to so many women that I empathize, and I feel like it has to be such a personal answer because some women don't want to, you know, use padding inside. They just want to be who they are. And then that's okay too. You just have to not worry about the wrinkles as much, or don't keep your garments so close to your body, those type of answers. But keep in mind that a couple options are, it's okay to use two different cup sizes. Nobody will know. If I use a B cup on this side and a C cup on this side, nobody will know, only me. And I'll be able to make the change and I will look the same on both. I can also use a larger cup size on both sides. That will work also. Or I can decide to pad my bra, pad the inside, and then make the outside the same. Or I can decide to do none of those. And so I really wanted to address that. I actually had several questions on that. I really do believe that it's a, it's a thing. It's definitely a thing. Okay. Can you speak about the armhole templates? Yes, I can speak about them. Or there is a video that explains them. Yes, both. We have templates. In fact, they're on sale. Only on sale because I think I forgot to mark them back up from last weekend. It's really been a crazy week, you guys. It doesn't matter to me that you buy our templates. It doesn't matter. You know, there's a funny little story how they came about. Simply because I was in a workshop and Miss Donna knows who she is. She had this template. And this template was out of fabric. And fabric is moldable, you guys. And so she said to me when we were looking at problems, she goes, yeah, but it fits the template. Well, that's because the template was not straight. It was bent. And I thought, oh my goodness. So that inspired me to make rigid plastic templates. Okay, I don't care. You can make them. You can do whatever you want. But keep in mind that what they'll help you do is narrow the shoulder because you just pick 2 points between where a template goes. It's not about anything here. It's just this point and this point. And you go from the shoulder seam and you can swing it out to the side seams. So, I mean, there's still problems. Sometimes you need 2 different sleeves. And so, you know, you'll have to have 2 sets of templates. All it does is it gets you going in the direction of understanding the template concept and how easy and simple it is. Don't adjust sleeves. Don't redraft them. Don't do all that stuff. It's just too much work. There's all these sleeve sizes in the pattern. Just pick the size that works. Buy the circumference. Buy your garments that you're measuring, right? And just use that size and then use the armhole that goes with it. The goal is to just really make it simple. But yes, there are a couple YouTube videos on it, how to place it, how to do all that kind of stuff. What is the code to get the second? Oh, you don't need a code to get the second DVD free. If you go to Plain Potatoes, and if you put Plain Potatoes in your cart, you know, once you get to the cart part, it will say, plus, what's up your sleeves? It'll just say that. It'll be one product, but it'll be 2 videos. And we'll know to put the second video in your cart. And you'll see that for both of them, it's $29.99. Okay, hope that helps. Okay, doesn't that laying the back adjusted for high rounded back on the fold at each end, but not the adjusted part, defeat the purpose? Because it's like you're taking away the fabric you adjusted for. This is a really good question. I really appreciate it, but the answer is no. And let me go back and try to explain why. So, when you are doing a rounded back adjustment, let's go back to our definitions of fit, which we use as L, C, and D. L, C, D. L being length, C being circumference, D being depth. So if I were to ask you, which of those 3 is a rounded back? And I hear the answer, and you're telling me the answer is depth. It's depth. That means there's a depth, and if we define depth, it's tricky, but depth means there's a greater length at center back than there is at the side. So when I have equal length, that's length. But when I have an unequal length, that's depth. Okay? So this equal length didn't work. And so I cut it. I added at the center, but not at the side. Therefore, guess what? Now it's called depth. So I have fixed the depth issue. All I'm doing is shaving off a little bit of circumference. And that's not going to hurt anything. And no, you've definitely not defeated your change. You've just been allowed yourself to put it on the fold. So try really hard. And it's typically done. It's very common not to confuse depth with length and depth with circumference and length with, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Very good question, though. Okay. I have a double round back adjustment, so it just means she's slashing 2 places, which is okay. And sometimes, you know, what you want is the garment to follow the body, and you don't want to take too big a slash at one place. And the shoulder adjustment, this works well. But when I'm wearing the garment, I get a horizontal fold of fabric across the upper back to the shoulder when I reach forward. Okay, so I get this question a lot. Like, not this particular question, but the question is, oh, I just love it when I'm standing there, but the minute I move, I don't like it anymore. Well, you guys, you can't have a fabric move because your LCDs change when you move. So you can either make it for when you're straight or you can make it for when you move. You can't do both. Knits do the best possible job of doing that. So for instance, when you move, if you get that wrinkle across your back, try pinning out that wrinkle and then standing still. And you'll find that it pulls to the back because you need it. But when you reach forward, you know, it's too much. You can try to minimize it. It could be that it's on the very edge of being too much. And so if you take some away, it might strike a happy medium. The best example I can give you is, I had a woman say to me one time, I have just too much fullness in the front of my pant. When I sit down, there's all this extra. So I said, okay, why don't you sit down? And I pinned out the extra. And then I said, okay, now stand up. Well, she couldn't stand up. I mean, she, you know, cut her in half because she needed that fabric when she stood up. So walking and moving, we have different expectations of fabric that we have when we're standing perfectly still. And you're the one who has to kind of get a happy medium of what those are going to be for you. Okay? Okay. Any other questions? Are we okay? Okay. All right. So I wanted to talk about these changes, and I know I touched on them recently, but let's say, for instance, you are increasing the size of a bust dart. And in the case I'm going to use as an example is, let's say you're in a D cup and you're already using a D cup and you find that you need the D cup to be a little larger. So you know how to make that dart larger, but now you kind of have this little, domino effect in that the side seams don't match. Okay, so in that case, whatever amount you made that cup size larger by, you're going to add to the bottom of the front so that the side seams will match. That's it. Really simple to do. All right. Because that's length. It's an uneven length. If I'm talking with pants, when I make changes from front to back, I want to make sure that when I sew in these changes, whatever I'm doing to the front has to either taper to nothing or it has to taper to something that has to equal that back. When you are making changes and you find that the hems aren't the same, then you've got to go back and look and say, okay, what did I do that screwed up the hem? Because the hem shouldn't have been changed. Should not have been changed. So I just wanted to go over that to just make sure that you understood that. Bottom hem frustrations should not be there. Everything really being changed internally should either taper to nothing, and that means literally disappear at the edge, because that's a pivot point. That's how the pattern is allowed to stay flat. Or if it goes to the side in the front, it should pick up that same amount if it continues to the back. Okay, I just wanted to double check on that. Okay, now let's talk. Okay, can you explain differences between crotch depth and crotch length? I can, absolutely. So let's get a, hey Benjamin, would you hand me, is there a yardstick just right there? Okay, so here we go. This is the best example I know how to do this, you guys. We're going to use this yardstick, and the yardstick is going to go from, this is my waist and this is my crotch. And this is called crotch depth. All crotch depth can do, it's the length of the body. It can only go up or down. So if I need more, I just add at the top, okay? This is going to be, and I always, when I'm in class, I have somebody else hold this ruler. I don't have somebody else, so you're going to have to pretend with me. This now is crotch length, and it goes around the rear end, around the tummy, and it meets up at the crotch depth, at the point of the crotch. So the up and down is the crotch depth, and the around is the crotch length. And what's important for everybody to understand, as I'm sitting here not able to do this, is that I can change the tape measure without changing this. The goal is to operate each of them separately. They impact one another, but I can change one without changing the other. I can change this without changing the depth. I can add to the depth. I can bring this up, and I haven't changed this at all. Just my starting points are different. So the tape measure is crotch length. The yardstick is crotch depth. Okay, hopefully that. It is a deptual perception, and that's the only reason you guys struggle with it, because it's taking something flat and now, creating the depth in it. Okay, so another question we had tonight is, I'm going to blend sizes. Okay, so whenever you're blending sizes, and this, I've got a picture of this that I did, and it is, nope, yep, yep, perfect. All right, we're so out of order tonight that we, which is fine, it's just that, okay. So I wanted to show you this because the question was blending sizes from bottom to top. So she needs extra at the bottom, and how does she do that? So the first thing you want to do is, and this is not the one particular pattern she asked for, but it's the same concept, is you want to put the pieces together and figure out where center back is and where the sides are. And in here what I'm doing, as you can see, is I'm adding at the center back and at the center front. I'm adding at the center front and the center back, but only from the waist down. And I'm doing that by simply pivoting those patterns off of the fold line. If they're not on a fold line, I can still slice them and open them up to where I'm adding circumference. It's a dart. If you notice, there's just a big dart going vertical from top to bottom because I'm adding more room at the bottom than I am at the top. This is a very easy, effective way of giving that garment more circumference at the bottom than I have at the top and leaving everything at the top intact. Okay? Okay. Hope that helps. Sometimes you will need to kind of piece the pattern together or figure out, okay, where's center back? On our patterns, we always mark center back and center front. I shouldn't say always. Most of the time, if everybody's doing their job, which you guys know that doesn't happen, we're marking center front and center back. Is the method for the SBA? I don't know what an SBA is. SBA? Just ask it again. The same for the French dart as we use for a bust. Yeah, just ask it again if you don't mind. When you increase the bust dart size and add to the bottom, do you only add to the side and not to the center of the front? When you increase the bust dart size and add to the bottom, well, when you're increasing a bust dart, you add top and bottom. You make both legs wider. Yeah, maybe that will help you. You make both legs wider. Okay? How do I change a raglan sleeve to take into account my forward shoulder? Just pretend it's regular. Add to the back, take away from the front. Same exact way. Okay? If there's something weird about that, let me know. Okay, so in this case, she said, when you say go up a size, usually going from a knit to a woven, exactly what do you mean? The literal person interprets this as tracing, cutting the next size all the way around. I became aware of that. Somebody asked me a question a little while ago, and I thought, that's not even close to what I meant. So I do understand, you guys, communication is a tricky thing, and sometimes I don't speak correctly, to be honest. My children tell me that all the time. Mom, just say what anyway. But sometimes when I hear you say, go up in circumference only, I cut my regular size, except the side seams and princess seam. Does it depend on the fabric? It does. All of those are variables. When I say go up a size, I'm really not meaning a size. All I'm meaning is increase your circumference. There are numerous ways to do that, but typically I want you to distribute that circumference, balance it throughout the whole pattern, which is why I used the one example of the lady who asked, do I just add 1 inch to the side seam? I know, I so understand why you're doing it, and it's okay to do that. But once you've done that and you realize that you needed to add 4 inches total, let's say hypothetically, go back and find the size that's 4 inches bigger and use that whole complete size. Don't mix and match it. We talked about earlier, you need to mix and match, where one size at the top and one size on the bottom. Okay, so when I say go up in size, what I'm meaning is increase your circumference. Okay? All right, this was a really good question, I thought. When we get older, we lose volume above the bust. How do we take that extra fabric out? Well, first off, that's a really generic statement, okay? However, I'm going to go with it. But you have to decide, is it length, circumference, or depth? It's one of those three things, and then you would take it out accordingly. So length, circumference, or depth. I don't think it's we'll just stop there. Length, circumference, or depth. You figure out which one it is, and then take it out accordingly. Okay. I thought this was a very interesting question, and I want to go through and explore why. Is the correction the same for a large protruding derriere as it would be for the swayback for tunics or longer jackets? Okay, so in this question, she is assuming that a large derriere causes issues, which it does not. It doesn't mean she doesn't have a swayback, but a large derriere is just circumference, divided equally. And the fact that in her particular case it might be coupled with a swayback, it's like saying, if someone has a large bust, how do I adjust the waist? They're two different parts, and I need you to kind of look at it as two different parts. One doesn't impact the other. It might in your case, but certainly it doesn't mean it's a rule that we carry on to everybody that we deal with, okay? So I want to separate out length, circumference, and depth and make sure I understand those differences and treat them differently. But there's nothing wrong with a lady who has maybe a greater circumference at the hip line. Sometimes will need a sway back adjustment, and sometimes she just won't. It just depends on how the body holds that weight. PDFs for discontinued patterns. No, PDFs, you guys, I've talked about my feeling on PDFs before, and let me just say it again. I feel like PDFs, and that doesn't mean we'll never do them, but PDFs are giving my problems to you. I don't want to do that. I'm trying to help you be as successful as possible, as quickly as possible. PDFs mean every page you get, you have to spend tracing and making larger. That thought is just so unjust to me as a sewer. As a pattern company, it's offensive that I would say, here, pay for you to do all this work. And I'm just amazed that you all want to do it. I get you get it quicker. I get that those things are solved. But the amount of errors, I like lose sleep at night just thinking about how many errors are happening as you're tracing these patterns. So no, I'm not a fan of it. And understand it would take my $1 million inventory and do away with it just like that. Boy, that's great news. My storage, all that other stuff. I just don't feel like it's an answer that I feel valid. So I won't, for now. Yeah, for now. Things are always changing, but for now. And I don't want to hype on that, and I'm sorry. I get too... Okay, I want to talk about, is the method for a small bust adjustment. I don't know a method for a small bust adjustment. So I don't know to answer that question. I don't know a small bust adjustment. Just use a B cup, C cup, or D cup. There should be no small bust adjustment necessary. Okay, you can't be smaller than a B, because trust me, I made the pattern. You can't be smaller than a B. Okay? All right. I want to talk tonight about proportions a little bit. So I had a question is, for short-statured women, what is the best way to wear separates? And let me just say, for short-statured women, you need to be aware of proportions, because you'll get eaten alive with ready-to-wear separates. They are just not made. And I'm going to call short, I hate to say this, but I'm going to call short 5'2". And so many of the stores are not doing petites, but in your own sewing, you just need to be aware. So I pulled up some photos. I did some photos, and you know what else I did? I put the book on sale. Dress to Kill Gently. I put on, it's normally $20, I put on for $15. But I want to show you a couple of ideas here. Let's go with number 13. Yeah. I want you to look at this, and don't even judge. Oh, I never wear that. Don't go there. Stop. Okay. I just want you to notice that the proportions on this, when you're wearing shorts, are 1:1. So typical proportions that we use a lot are 1:1. 1 to 1.5 is going to be knee length. That is the length of the body from the shoulder. It's not over the bust. It's a visual measurement. Shoulder to waist and waist to hem. If you see how that is, if you literally took that picture and measured from the shoulder to the hem of her shorts divided by half, that's her waist. And it doesn't matter how tall you are or how short you are, if you're going to have that look, it's going to be a 1:1. Let's go to the next one. Now, the reason I'm telling you this, you guys, is I want you to look at any picture out there and you measure the little person, okay? You measure the little person, you know how much you are, and you just do a times. So in each of those pictures, and you'll notice this in most fashion pictures, there's nothing in the background. They're not next to a car. There's nothing in the background that will give you indicator as to how tall that model is, because a model's 6 feet. They don't want you to know that. They want you to think that model is just like you. And that's just not the case. Now, lately, if you notice in fashion magazines, they've actually had to declare, because they've gotten so much flack or in so many returns, Model is ... 5'10", wearing a size 2. A 5'10" person wearing a size 2. Holy cannoli. Okay, so now you start to see that it's going to look much different on a person who's 5'2", wearing a size 12, which is probably pretty normal, but understand those changes. You can do those measurements and really come out very successfully with the anticipation of what it's going to look like on you. But my point being is, if you are 5'2", and if you're 2 inches off, it's a greater deal than if you're 5'10" and you're 2 inches off. You know, the percents are just not in your favor. So if you are 5'2", be aware, be cautious of what you are wearing, and make those proportions 1-to-1, 1-to-1.5, 2-to-1, 3-to-1. Just be aware of all of your choices, and there's numerous videos that we've got online. Again, the book I put on sale, it's all in the book. But just be aware, and I think it's very important, as long as we are making our clothing, why not just know about proportions so that we can build them in? It makes perfect sense to me. Okay? A cup exists, yes. A cup doesn't exist in blouses. It is a bra cup thing because, and I appreciate you asking that question to clarify. The difference between an A cup and a B cup, even in a bra, is just I think it's a 1/4 inch. Might be a 1/2 inch, I'm not sure. But it's not significant enough that it translates into a blouse. So the difference in cup sizing and blousing is the base of the neck to the waist versus the shoulder to the waist. And because there's just so little difference, a B cup will take care of the A cup. Okay? It's not as precise. Very good. Very well said. Okay, what else, you guys? I know we're past time, but that's okay. Any other questions? Your questions are answers. This particular wrap, I wanted to show you. Would you pull up those 2 pictures, Benjamin? I don't think we used... Yeah. I want to show you a designer. You probably already know this designer, Missoni. And Missoni is very, very pricey. This is a little jacket. If you go to the next one, Missoni is known for all his zigzags. And they're fabulous. I can't see the price on this, but basically what you want to see is it's just a whole lot of money. And if you go through and look at a lot of these Missonis, and if you look at how much they are and the fiber content, a lot of the Missonis are polyester, or they're a fancy name for polyester, but they're polyester. So I wanted to show you this because I just love this. And again, I don't know the fabric that this is, but I did it using 201. And actually, I hadn't tried it on, but I thought, you know what, I bet I could use it over this little purple thing that I've got on tonight. But it's a Missoni. It's an Italian fabric. I feel certain it was done after Missoni because, you know, this is definitely the look of Missoni. Missoni doesn't necessarily have anything trademarked or, it's just a look that he's always done. And so it's a great look. Again, I don't know the fabric number. Sorry about that. But so it's a kimono sleeve, pattern 201. And I think I put it up for like $9.99. It's got great fringe. It's just cute. It's easy. It's fun. It's great for summer. You saw I had it over a white top. It's great with a white top. So either way, I just wanted you to see that it's a great look. You were saying the LCD issue is not clear on that totally. Okay, let's go over it. From shoulder to bust. Okay. Let's go over it and just make sure you understand. So, let's go back to that pants issue again. L is length. And so the lengths of the body are the base of the neck to bust, bust to waist, waist to hip. And anytime you have lengths, if you just think about this logically, lengths can only go up or down. And if you need something to be more in one place than another, it's not length. Okay? An uneven length is depth. Okay? So then we have circumference, and circumference goes around. And sometimes, like a waistline, I need it to be higher at the side and lower in the front. Well, guess what? That's an uneven length. That's a dart. That's depth. Circumference, sometimes I need, like I showed you, where you have to put the bottom off a little bit and you create a vertical dart. That's depth. So an uneven length is depth. An uneven circumference is depth. I will tell you that most of the struggles we have are depth issues because we just really have never been taught darts. There's so much misunderstanding about darts that I find it's the reason that we go quilt. Quilts are flat, they have length, they have circumference, they have no depth. We like that. We don't long term, but for short term, we feel good. Never made a quilt that didn't fit. So what I want to look at is if I have a gap that's in one place and not in another, that's telling me it's depth. That's telling me now I need to find out, is it a length depth or is it a circumference depth? Length depths run horizontal and vertical depths run up and down, vertical. Okay? So if you will just go through anything and pinch like a shoulder angle, when that's wrong, I get a gap below it. And when I pinch it up, that's a horizontal depth issue. Therefore, it was length. It was the incorrect length from one place to another. Anytime it's horizontal, it's a length issue, but length has to be the same, so therefore it's depth. Okay? All right. From shoulder to top of the bust is extra fabric. How do I correct that? I would think you'd have to change the shoulder angle of the dart. The shoulder angle. The shoulder angle is a dart. It's two angled lines coming together. That's a dart. It's just sewn by sewing a seam rather than sewing it in the bust line. That's the only difference. Okay? What number is the red striped fabric? 48. Oh, no, 40. I don't know. 4408. 44. I can't believe I remembered that. 4408. 4408. I just put it up. Before the webcast. Is there a standard height that ready to wear is designed for? Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't make a difference. If it works for you, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I mean, I think these days, to be honest, different designers are all doing their own thing. Nobody's paying attention to standards. The standards were way back in the 50s, but everybody's so off standard now that everybody thinks they know the standard. So, I can tell you that I use a fit model, a woman who, that's what she does for a living. She's a fit model. I've had her on PBS before. I've had her on the TV show. I don't remember what it was, but anyway, she's a fit model. And I've got two. I've got one for the regular size and one for the W size. And those fit models are 5'8". That still is being used as a fit model, and I find it to be very typical still. But it doesn't mean everybody uses 5'8", and I couldn't speak to what that standard is. It's so varied. Can you show how to move the French dart angle and move it more to the side? Well, I probably couldn't show you, but I could tell you. You have an opening, and if you cut through this opening, whenever you're going to move a dart, you make two cuts. One where it is, and one where it's going. Both darts have to be cut to the bust point. It's called a pivot point. So you cut through the old dart on one of the two lines. You cut a new place where you want it to go, and you create a pivot, and you close up the old dart, and it will create a new space. Okay? That is called basic pattern making. Did you make the 201 shorter? The one you are wearing, it looks shorter than the line drawing on the back of the pattern. No, I made this just as the pattern. Made it exactly like the pattern. Okay? One clarification about pant changes impacting hems or not. Okay? Are you suggesting depth changes in pants should not impact hem length? Well, I'm not suggesting it. I'm telling you. Okay? I'm being a little more than suggesting. And let me just kind of make it a little clearer for you. Let's say, for instance, I have a pair of pants and I've got really bags under the butt. If I take those bags away, it doesn't change the hem. If I've got a sway back, And if I fix the sway back, it doesn't change the hem. The fabric has a tendency to puddle where it is wrong. It doesn't go all the way to the hem. If we could be that lucky, we could just fix it at the hem. It doesn't do that, you guys. It puddles where it's wrong. So I am saying to you that when you have pant issues, like, you know, front gaps, whatever they are, armhole gaps don't go to the bottom. They puddle where they're at. They puddle where they're wrong. They have to be fixed where they're at. And when they're fixed where they're at, they take away the gap. They don't change the hem, not unless you over-fix them. Okay, then they'll change the hem because you've changed it too much. I hope that helps. The French darts, do you cut the lines or do you just trace the lines and sew? The French dart, those are cutting lines on our patterns. If you're using our patterns and using our French darts, if you look at the instructions, those lines are cut lines. They have seam allowance included. Okay? When making a front bust adjustment, do you make an adjustment to the back also? No, because the back didn't need an adjustment, I don't think. If I'm making a front cup adjustment, it's because I'm making the dart larger. Don't change the back. Just make that dart larger. Because I made that dart larger, the side seam will be shorter, and just add at the bottom, and that will equalize the seams to match each other. I still added greater depth into the garment. Okay? The answer to that is no. You do not make any adjustment to the back. Has this been fun, you guys? I hope. It's 9:15. I gotta let these guys go. My one guy is working overtime for both. Anyway, I want to say thank you. I want to say especially thanks to Mr. Benjamin. Armhole Templates are on sale. The book's on sale. Just an FYI, Spiffy is full. It's sold out. So, you know, I got an email saying, hey, how come I can't sign up? That's because it's sold out. I do have a pants fitting class here in Dallas the end of June. It's at the new store. It's on a Sunday afternoon. It's going to be really delightful. And that's halfway full. So just be aware that if you're thinking about doing stuff like that, just don't wait too long. The New York trip is fairly full also for next year. So I just want to give you a heads up on that so that if you wait or you plan to do it at a certain time, you don't get disappointed. Okay? Other than that, you guys, you know I love you. We love you. We're going to have a sew-along. And I'm not sure, it's going to be next week, but I'm not, with the new store will open Saturday. The contractors that were delayed from last Saturday have already got in, they've gotten their stuff done, so there's no reason we're going to delay it another week. Everything's done. And I'm so excited. I can't tell you how excited I am. I'm a little nervous, but just come in and be nice, okay? Other than that, we've got a whole shipment of fabric coming in tomorrow, and it'll be at the new store. But anyway, hope to see you this Saturday. Come by and say hello. I mean, even if you don't want to buy any fabric, just come by and say hello and take up a little bit of space. All right? All right. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye. Happy sewing.